Hello and welcome back to the Cinema Wave podcast. It is I, Vinny Albano. I am joined with my co-host today, Liz Seiko.
What's going on, Vinny?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm excited. I'm ready.
Yes, today we are talking about Ari Aster's new controversial film, Eddington. It's starring Joaquin Phoenix, Emma Stone, Austin Butler, Pedro Pascal. It's got a stacked cast. It's a crazy film. It takes place in a New Mexico small town during May 2020, right during the heat of the pandemic. It's crazy. We were talking off camera. We have very different opinions already, but let's just dive right into this. I want to hear your brief overview, your thoughts. And honestly, I just imagine from there, we're just going to go back and forth because this is a lot. This movie is a lot.
There's a lot to unpack. It's a very powerful cast. I love like almost all of their performances in this. I think it's a very strong cast. This is one of the first movies in a really long time that I came out of, and I honestly didn't know where my thoughts were. Usually when I come out of a film, I pretty much am confident in my decision right away of like, did I like it? What did I like about it? What did I dislike? And I can articulate things very well, but I'll be honest, this movie has me kind of messed up, and I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. It's not a bad film at all. Technically, I think it's great. I also think it's a very, very ambitious film for Ari Aster to be tackling, just because there's the whole conversation of like, is it too soon to be making a film about 2020? It's only been 5 years. Like, should he have waited another 5 so that it was 10 years after? Because we are kind of still dealing with the aftermath of it. So like, is now a good time to be making this film? I don't know. Maybe we'll talk more about that. But I guess I just walked away with this film not really knowing how I was supposed to feel, which for me is a little bit of a red flag, because if you're going to make a film about such a huge moment in history and something that changed our entire world, not just country, I think there needs to be like a clear statement or a clear theme. But from what you and I have been talking about, and even what I've seen online, some people are walking away and they feel like there have been powerful statements by Aster made. And even like some of the themes, people are walking away and are very struck by some just themes that are coming through. I unfortunately feel like I wasn't affected by any of those. For me, this just felt like a film that was like, okay, Ari Aster wants to make a snapshot of what 2020 was like in a satirical and almost like heightened point of view at like the heightened, most stressful and anxiety induced moment of 2020, which I totally agree with that. I think let's make a film about that so that future generations to come can see what it was like. But I wish that there was a little bit more nuance, maybe, or maybe it just hit me more. Maybe I wasn't in the right mindset. And maybe, Vinny, you can convince me otherwise. So why don't you hit us with your thoughts? Because I know that you had much more of like a positive tone coming out of this.
Yeah, and that's very valid. And I see your perspective. For me, the film worked so well because of almost exactly that, where it's not trying to force feed you a message in a way, but it gives you and it builds this world, or shall I say this small city within our world. And it builds it in a very nuanced way where it leaves it to the audience to decide, okay, how do you feel about this? And I think that's why so many varying opinions, very contrasting opinions I've seen on Letterboxd and just on Instagram. Those are really the only 2 apps that I'm on. But people are calling this film very centrist, very apolitical. And honestly, I would disagree with that notion. One, because I feel like that doesn't make an entirely bad film. I feel like sometimes there are filmmakers, and we have to take their perspective as just as valid as ours. And even if their political opinions don't agree with yours, engage with it. And you might not agree with it, but you could still like it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And even that critique to me feels off because you can show nuance to both sides if it is apolitical. But I don't even think it is apolitical because I think it leaves it up to the audience. And although you say you don't, you're kind of left empty in the end where you don't know what to perceive. I almost think that is the film's strongest point in a way because it gives the audience what they have to break it down for themselves. And I remember reading that Ari Aster actually was talking about, and I apologize, I don't remember the filmmaker's name. I believe he was the guy who wrote Network, but Ari Aster was saying how he loves those films, but he doesn't like how there's always a scene where a character is like telling the audience their belief as a screenwriter, just kind of like inserting it. And he was saying he doesn't like that. So this, in a way, contributes to that of like, it's the satire, it's nuance, it's kind of critiquing different sides of the political spectrum, but it's also not trying to tell you something directly. But in a way, in my opinion, by the end of the film, which we'll get into spoilers later, I do think it does take a side that a lot of people are missing. I really liked the film. I thought it was funny. I love the satire. I love the humor. There's just a lot of like stupid, funny moments. I could totally understand people and their dislike towards how the film really establishes itself as a grounded satire or even a grounded drama at the beginning of the film. And then people are critiquing it that it goes off the rails. I personally love that. I think it's just ham it up. It's a movie, you know, and I think that you can actually deliver messages, or like I said, the opposite of that, you can deliver an experience for the audience to kind of build a message on a heightened fantasy, more than a super realistic drama. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I also think the ending we will get into, because I think that's probably when a lot of people started dropping out of the film, is because they thought they were going to get some like beautiful tie up of like, okay, as a society in a world, these are the changes that we need to make in order to like go back or move forward in a way, past the anxiety and oversaturatedness of social media. And like, he does not give you that. Like, he doesn't give you answers. He's not trying to be like preaching, like, I have all the answers because I'm a screenwriter and like I'm like a filmmaker and I know what needs to change the world, which I do appreciate that he's not trying to say he has the answer because nobody does. But I can see how people start to be like, where are we? Where are we going? What are we leading toward? Because one other thing that I didn't enjoy about this film is I think certain storylines were not fully looped back into like the main storyline of Joaquin Phoenix's character. Let me just pull it up really quickly. Joe Cross. Yeah. So he is like our main storyline. We're with him practically the entire time, just following along on his ride as he's crossing paths with the mayor, played by Pedro, Ted Garcia, his wife, played by Emma Stone, Luis Cross, and then like even like his co-workers, the two men, Michael Ward and Luke Grimes. So we're like watching him kind of interact with these other people. But sometimes I felt like the side character stories weren't really fully looping back into the main story. And it was more of just like a random little side thing that I guess you could kind of say had a relation to 2020, but like not to the actual story that Ari Aster was writing. And specifically, I'm talking about Emma Stone. Yeah. Emma Stone and Austin Butler's storyline for me. I got it from the beginning. I was like, okay, I kind of see where we're going. We're going down like the conspiracy route that really took over in 2020 on the internet, and people just being stuck at home, having nowhere to go. They started looking toward people online that like started preaching, I guess, and that could cover a ton of different topics. And so I got that, but then it never really comes to fruition ever, their storyline, which is so disappointing because those two for me are such powerful actors and honestly A-list stars at this point. So I'm a little confused on like, why did we have two A-list stars in those roles, and why didn't we give it to somebody maybe a little bit less known, and then they could add a little bit mischievousness to it, and like we could just kind of take it as like, oh, okay, they really are just a supporting role, versus like Emma Stone for me. I was shocked that she wasn't more of a player in the plot for this.
Yeah.
Do you feel the same way? Did you read into it a little bit different than I did?
No, I actually 100% agree with you.
Okay, great.
That's my biggest flaw with this film as well, is that, I mean, the film is all over the place, and you could critique it for being all over the place. I kind of enjoy that.
I guess 2020 was all over the place too, is the argument.
Yeah, that too. And I love the chaotic nature. I love scripts that do that. And admittedly, I am a writer that does that, where it's just like, just go balls to the walls. It's fun, you know, have some fun with it and go crazy. The Emma Stone plot, I don't know what was going on there, because I understand the message. I understand, right? We talked about these nuanced satirical comedy through different perspectives, right? You see more... I mean, our main cast of characters, Joe, the family we start in with Joe and Emma Stone's character and her mother, very like conservative. You're kind of, as an audience, you are made to empathize with people that you may not empathize. And to be brutally honest, they're not great people. They're assholes. And, you know, they're believing in, like you said, you covered it perfectly well. They're believing in all these conspiracy theories and all these crazy mumbo jumbo. And I understand the message of that, of like, okay, 2020, we're seeing so many people just devote their lives now to like nonsense conspiracy theories, just empty words.
But that they're fully like believing. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. And that's how... And I think that was the intention behind Austin Butler's presence, is when he's in the scene, and not trying to get into spoilers all too much, but I'm sure we'll get into those very soon. But when he's in the scene, he's just speaking empty words. There's nothing behind it, but Emma Stone's like, oh my God, I'm seeing a salvation in this person, and just desperately grasping for someone to connect to. And he's like, oh, I'm here. I know your pain. And I get it. But with so much time being spent on that for literally just empty words at the end of the day, it does feel like a waste of time. And that's my biggest flaw with this film, is that you covered it perfectly well. I understand the message, but it's just like feels like a waste of time. It feels like it could have been cut, honestly.
Yeah, honestly, it could have totally been cut and saved about 30-45 minutes of this film. And it really, if you take it out, yes, it probably, like, it does warrant to have her on screen so that you can see the relationship between like the marriage aspect between the two of them, and kind of like what's pushing Joaquin's character Joe to move forward is like his love for his wife and wanting to make her proud. And I mean, even from the beginning, like one of the opening shots is we're watching Joe watch a video on YouTube of like how to convince your partner to have a baby with you, which like that right off the bat, yes, is very funny, but also is very sad in a way that this man is just like trying to find ways on like how to get something that he's probably always wanted and now doesn't know if he'll ever have, in also a time that like the world is crumbling essentially around him. So I think that was a big pivotal moment in order to have us have some empathy for Joe's character. But then it's just like she just kind of plays like the crazy wife that then runs off and then like never comes back. And I mean, at this point, we're probably going to get into spoilers. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's a very interesting film. It's an experience. But yeah, from this point on, we're probably going to get into spoilers because we kind of keep tiptoeing around things. And I feel like we need to talk about it.
It's hard to discuss this film without
without
spoilers.
Watching spoilers or talking about spoilers. So go check out the film. Go support Ari Aster. I mean, he is a brilliant filmmaker. He really does know how to make entertaining films. Like I was never bored watching this. Just might not be everybody's cup of tea, you know? But anyways, yeah. So like she's a huge part and a pivotal pillar to establishing our main protagonist, antagonist kind of character. And then just literally disappears. And like, I don't know if Ari wanted her to come back as like a question of like, maybe she's the one that like starts killing people. Which I honestly maybe would have liked that more if like it was kind of like a cult aspect of like taking over this town, but like they just disappear for no reason.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just interesting. I almost don't have anything else to comment on it because they disappear, and with that, my thoughts do too.
Yeah.
It's like,
like the whole time you're just kind of like, do they come back? And then they don't, and then they come back for a quick snippet just of like knowing that she's pregnant now with somebody else's child, and then you're like, wow, that fucking sucks for Joe. Like his wife literally never wanted a kid with him, and then she ran off with a cult and got pregnant.
And
like, that's it.
And it's hard because it gives emotional weight to Joe's character. There is a message there. It just feels, that particular subplot feels too long and too unfocused. However, to also give it its flowers in saying that, right, of how in the end it's just so depressing. I love that. I love that the ending of this film is honestly very nihilistic. And it feels like a bubble of American politics of how this whole film feels like Aster is venting. And in the end, it's like, fuck it. Nothing's going to get better. Everything just repeats and it's a big old cycle, you know?
I did listen to an interview with him recently, and just like quick snippets of like what his overall take with this film was, what he was trying to achieve. And he's like, we at the end of the day are just like people being pawned against each other and just kind of being like forced to like argue with each other while there's bigger entities above us just ruling. And like we're so involved with hating each other that like we can't see that there's a bigger thing happening, which is also so clear because in this film, the bigger thing above us is this data center that they keep talking about, which is like the weirdest thing. Like, why a data? Like, what?
So, okay,
what an interesting thing. Give me your thoughts on that.
So that transitions me perfectly, honestly, within why I love this film.
Okay.
And why I started this episode with kind of pointing out the people's critiques for an apolitical thing. I did not know he said that. But that fits perfectly with my interpretation of the film because I see this film actually as yes, it's nuanced. It takes punches and satirical commentary on both kind of more conservative, Republican-leaning politics, as well as more like, I want to put it in quotes, left liberal-leaning. But I think at the heart, this film is actually a leftist film rather than a more kind of centralist liberal film, as a lot of people are trying to critique online. Because in the end, the big villain is the corporations. It's the tech oligarchies who want to just buy out land from may it be reservations, Native American reservations, or just working class people of America, buy out their land, use their water, pollute their towns, and just build data centers. That's what I love about this film, is exactly what you said from the Ari interview of how it's just at the end, like, sorry, I'm running in circles with what I'm trying to say. I get what you're saying. Yeah, but it clearly delivers this message of we're distracted by this culture war, but realistically, these huge corporations and these huge capitalists are the ones that
looming over us and coming in slowly without us even noticing.
And they're the ones that win at the end of the day. You know, at the end of the day, we're going to be the ones that the conflict is just going to yell and yell and yell and miss proper communication. It was just going to lead to gun, boom, boom, boom. We're going to die. And the rich are going to have their data centers and they're going to have their bunkers out in New Zealand. And it's going to be all sweet and dandy for them. But we're so focused on the culture of what everything's going on. And I love that this film goes so haywire at the end of how literally that you have like these Antifa crisis actors that are literally hired by maybe this company. We don't know, but the logo is on the private jet. And I personally really love that, because although it goes into more conspiracy theory, it is proving that message that we are talking about here of how in the end, we're the ones that lose. Also, sorry, this is going on for a tangent. I'm going to let you speak in a moment. I apologize.
Go off, Benny. Go off.
But in a weird way, with Joe Cross's character, he's the more conservative, Republican-leaning character. And and they accept the corporation at the end. And he's used as a puppet to be like, okay, guys, we have their approval. They're allowed to come here and take our land and do whatever they want to do with their data center. I think that is a critique of where we're at currently, and how recently the right-leaning Republican Party has kind of joined forces with. Now, I'd argue that for a long, long time in American history, both the Democratic and the Republican Party have always prompted and propped up, capitalists and these big corpos for as long as possible. But now we're seeing it so broadly, especially within the Trump administration, how big, like, oligarchical capitalists like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and stuff are now,
how involved they are.
Yeah, they're directly involved now. And I think the ending is just that,
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Now that I'm talking about it, because at first for the data center, for me, I just kept kind of being like, why are we calling it a data center? Like, why don't they go at why don't they say it's more of a AI or I don't know, a higher tech? Like, a data center to me is just so weird, such a weird coded name for something. It's not it's not some high colluded tech company. It's it's a data center. What data are they collecting? But I guess the more that we talk about it, and I can totally see that ending. I still though wish that maybe it just would have reconnected to some of the story throughout, because I think we got so invested in I guess we just got so invested in the battle between Joe, Joaquin's character, and Pedro's, that then it felt like it really was supposed to be just a battle of the two different parties, but Ari Aster, which I do appreciate, he almost was like making fun of both sides in a way of showing how like how like everybody's just a hypocrite at the end of the day, and like people can say one thing but then they do the opposite, and so part of me just wishes that like it would have been full circle, especially for a 2.5 hour movie, like to get to such a powerful ending message. Like I wanted him to land that landing better and like stick it, rather than me have to take 48 hours and having like a long in-depth conversation for me to like fully understand it. You know what I mean? But I mean, maybe that's why I walked out and I just was so like at a loss of opinion, because I still didn't know like where he wanted it to go.
Yeah, I think that's entirely valid. And I totally see your perspective. I think for me, the reason why I'm a little bit more connected with it is just honestly, I think it's just the films that I like, or maybe I also love more, I guess, interpreted, not to sound pretentious, but I love when a piece of art, it's a little interpretive, I also just love the batshit craziness of I would say the midpoint to the end.
It got fucking crazy out there. Let's talk about it. Okay, essentially, when would you say like it started to get really crazy? For me, there's one distinct point.
I think is I would want to say the BLM movements, but it really is the murder of Pedro's character.
Yep, for me too. That was when I really was just like, oh, okay, we're going to go down this route right now. Because at first when he was shot, I didn't know who it was going to be. Did you think it was going to be Joe right away? Or did you have like other thoughts of like, well, it could be this person or this person?
I knew it was Joe, but in that moment, I was like, no, I can't. It can't be.
Yeah.
And then they reveal him.
Like, because they set it up to be Micheal, the other like police officer. They set it up that way to be like, oh, we think that it's going to be the only like person of color, like black police officer shooting like the mayor. And so I'm glad they didn't go down that route and have to cover that. But for me, all of a sudden it was like that happened and we were off in a completely different like tone and storyline, and it was kind of like, buckle up everybody, you're gonna see a lot of guns and blowing up and just the craziest shit happening.
And the violence, I want to ask you, did you like, just as a action set piece, enjoy the ending? Because I found the violence and just the absurdity of like, he literally brings out a huge, I don't know.
I don't even know what car. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, like a Negev or something. Just like, I enjoyed that. And like I said, I like when a piece of fiction can go hyper with it and just enhance their story to the extreme for kind of a punch.
Yeah.
And I think it landed for me personally.
I would say it landed and in a way, because they labeled this film a Western, I guess that's where the Western part really comes into it. Because up until that point, I don't know if I really felt like this was a Western at all, besides Joaquin wearing a cowboy hat. Literally, that's the only thing that for me made it a Western. So I guess like at that point, it was kind of like the Western shootout happening, but in modern day where like people have just absolute machine guns and are obliterating people. I will say about that scene, I usually can't stand like gun scenes when like we spend 10 minutes just like walking around and I feel like I'm in a video game and like they're looking over their shoulders. I really loved the camera work. I really loved it. Yeah. I loved that they kept faking us out and they kept making us think that, oh, the guy's going to be behind him now. And it was like, no, he's not. And you could just feel the panic that was within Joaquin's character the whole time of like, really, you don't know where somebody is at that moment. Also, just Joaquin is just a brilliant actor, and like him bringing in the whole like asthma breathing at that moment too, because there were moments where I was like, dude, you are breathing so heavy for somebody that's trying to like be under the radar, but it's like he has asthma, like he can't breathe right now.
And with the COVID on top of that.
And with the COVID on, which he clearly has, which I love that they add that element of him definitely having COVID at the end and being sick. Like, it's just, I will say there are like the layers that start to come together in that moment. I think for me though, the part that really I was just like, why did we take this turn is like, the man took a knife to the head, like to the brain, through the scalp. How did he not die? And like, I understand like he's now disabled, but like, I don't know why, like, what is that supposed to say? And like, why did we go that route versus having him die and then being like another death that is shown on social media in a way?
Yeah. The way I took from the film, particularly for that, was two things. To make a final statement on another big message of the film, or another big satirical commentary of the film of just performative activism, quote unquote. And then also what I took from that scene was him essentially becoming disabled, and he becomes a puppet for everything to come.
Okay.
So it gives the script, that character, like, okay, we gotta tie in the data center, and how that eventually, like, we went over how
comes to light and everything.
Yeah, and how they're really the ones controlling things, and they are gonna use him as a political puppet. Also, it gives Brian, the kid in the film, a
very big turn.
Yeah, that whole circle of just performative activism. A great ending, because he essentially becomes Kyle Rittenhouse, and for the whole film, it's honestly, this is probably it's so funny in retrospect. The whole film, he has this huge, like, quote unquote woke, like, enlightenment, and but it's only because he wants to, like,
he just wants the girl.
Yeah,
he wants the girl. That's literally the only reason this man or boy gets involved in any activism and starts caring, is because he wants this girl to like him and pay attention to him.
Yeah,
which is like so crazy, but also not, because there's probably people out there that do that.
I know people like that. I know people like that. Yeah.
Which, again, like, that is also, I think, what he does really well in this film is like shedding light on just how like absurd like we are as human beings in times of like absolute crisis. And also, like, I think something that he did really smart, I usually can't stand like when social media is really brought in this heavy into a film. I just start getting annoyed with it, because I'm like, ugh, like, I don't want to see that in a film. I want to enjoy the film. But it was almost like a whole other character, honestly, the social media in this. And like, I appreciate it because it does also set the setting of 2020, because that was where you were getting all your information was from social media. You were hearing about news. You were hearing about people dying from there. You were hearing about just any update possible was from social media. And so I think if he didn't have it as prominent in this film, it just wouldn't have felt as crazy of a time as it was.
Yeah, I actually love that point that you make there, because what I don't like when they use social media in films, and from the way you explained it, I think you feel the same way. There's this huge trend now where it's like, okay, we have to critique social media because, like, everyone, they want hype, they want clout. And we're getting so many films that are just about, like, the hype, the clout, like bodies, and the list goes on. But social media in this is not really about the clout per se, but how it's the third person in the room at all times. You know, your phone is always there and it's always listening, it's always watching, and it is a part of us. It's all our information. And I like that critique of social media more than like a standard, like, you know, don't compare yourself to others, you know,
like take a break if you need to. It's like, no, at all times you can be filmed doing anything. And I really do feel like 2020 was that pivotal turn as like society, when it became like anything can be found on the internet and you can be put on the internet at any moment without you knowing it, because we all just were stuck at home with our phones. And so I think that was a smart decision, a risky one, because it can be it could just keep hitting us over the head. And like, as an audience member, the last thing that you want to be watching when you're trying to watch a 2.5-hour film is somebody just scrolling on Facebook. But for me, it actually like heightened the comedy too, of like them scrolling and seeing these like random posts. I was just like, that shit's funny. And like, it's true. It really did happen.
Yeah. And going back to that whole, how the film is, I'm labeling it performative activism, how it's kind of critiquing that, and how social media is involved in that, and how it perfectly captures how just things and that behavior accelerates and at such a toxic rate. You have kind of the activism on the conservative side of things, where Joe just starts accusing Pedro's character of rape charges, like blatantly lying to people, and pressing that as a form of activism on his side of things, of like, this is a bad person, we have to form organized community and take him down, we can't allow him to be mayor. And then we see it on the other side of things, and how, like with the character of Brian, and how, you know, he starts going, just saying weird things and doing all that, and even like his wannabe girlfriend, or the girlfriend he wants to be, and how she just is so, you know, the film lays it on you. If you've seen the film, it just lays it on you. And then also with the swap, and how he becomes like this almost praised Kyle Rittenhouse right-wing grifter. He has a podcast. And then he's like, there's country music playing, and he has like a beautiful girlfriend and a perfectly mowed lawn. And it's like, it just shows you that the window, and how social media, how we're so consumed by it, we only see what is given to us and we take it as reality. Because the truth is that we saw Brian's character before he became this right-wing grifter, and we know the truth of his character. We know it's all performative. But now he's getting all these followers, and they believe that, you know, he's like a savior and he stopped this huge terrorist attack. So that's why I love the social media in this.
No, I mean, I think the social media, it's a big thing. And I also think that could be something that I taking away as a theme. That probably is the most on the nose one, is like how heavy influenced we are now after this. I do want to ask you, how do you feel about Pedro's character? We haven't really talked much about him that much. What did you take away from him? Did you like his performance? What did you think on him?
Yeah, he was definitely, I think, aside from the whole Austin, but actually I was gonna say I got less of him from the cast, but honestly I got less from Emma and Austin's characters, just because of how they were handled. I like Pedro. He's Pedro though, you know, and I think you feel a similar way. It's just, in the end, and you said this off camera, they hint at a side of him, because he himself is also very performative, you know, like he's going on about, he just wants your vote.
He's wearing the mask out in public, but then he's ripping it off like any chance he can.
Yeah, and even like he's this nice guy, but he mutes the mic on the laptop and calls his peer like bad words. I wanted more of that though. Before he got murdered, I almost wish they were like, they really doubled down on that. But before we could even see more of that side to his character, he's gone.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest disappointment for me.
I agree 100% with that. I think I said this off camera and I'm going to say it again. And I think I say it every time I review something that Pedro's in. He is such a nice guy on camera. Yeah. And I'm kind of sick of watching him be the nice, good looking man. I want him to have some mischievousness. I want him to have a little bit of dark, like, secrets underneath his character. And for me, this was the perfect role. This was literally, he was a politician who, like, wants to have that perfect face, who is in the middle of 2020, in the middle of a pandemic, and people are calling him out on things. Like, give us a little bit more, and don't just make it seem like he's the good old Boy Scout who's like, well, I'm doing the best that I can, and like, I'm a good man at the end of the day. Like, we've seen it. He's done it, and I don't want him to do it anymore. Yeah,
and I totally agree with you. I almost imagine an alternate universe where this film, he doesn't get murdered, but instead Joe starts murdering people. He starts losing control. Pedro starts murdering people, and then it's like a political battle while they're trying to like hide the skeletons in the closet,
See, okay, so I actually thought that this film, the way they like kind of pitched it and the way that it was spoken about was that it was going to be much more of like a town, like tons of murders happening. Yeah. And like, then the parallel of like, yes, you're terrified of like catching this, like this pandemic, but then you're also terrified of being murdered by some like murderer that's going around this desolate town. And so I thought that's the way they were going with it. Definitely took a completely different turn, which like not a horrible turn. I just wish that it was more of like more effective, like more affecting all the townspeople and not just like one or two people. And yeah, I just wanted Pedro's character to have a little bit more nuance to him. I think he can do it. He just loves playing the good boy, and I don't want him to play the freaking good boy anymore. And I know that he's probably going to be that in Fantastic Four. Oh, so 100%. Like, I need him to either take a break or give us something completely different.
Yeah, and I don't want to go too off the rails because we're speaking about Eddington.
Yeah, sorry.
No. No, because I'm going to go off the rails.
Okay.
You're perfectly fine. You're perfectly fine. No need to apologize there. But I wanted to ask you, do you think he's overrated, like as an actor?
Oh, Vinny. Yeah. I think he's getting to that point. I think if he were to fully, you know what it is? He's really starting to get into that like Dwayne the Rock Johnson vibe where he's just playing himself over and over and over again. If he can do something like Dwayne is right now and go and do a completely different character and really shock us all, we'll all believe he's a good actor. Part of me doesn't know if he's like a phenomenal actor or not, because he just is playing himself and he's just playing a charismatic person, which is hard to do. It is hard to make all of your characters likable, but like also that's like no fun. Like the fun is like playing these incredibly layered and detailed people on screen, and a part of me thinks that he just knows that he's good looking and charismatic and that he's like, well, I'm just going to keep playing that card and people will love me. But like, I think if he keeps going this way, people are going to get sick of him. I think people already kind of are, just because his face is everywhere. Next year he needs to give us something groundbreaking, or he needs to stop with the like big IP films and he needs to go do an indie film and kind of like take it back a little bit. Yeah.
I would love to see him almost as like a Bond villain. I think because he can embrace an edgier side but still retain his charming, he's the sexiest man cover on the magazine type look, right?
Or like there's so many good characters that like have that like suave like aura around them, but they really are just like grimy and slimy characters. Like I just think of like from like Game of Thrones, like Littlefinger. I think of him all the time of like he's such like a little worm, but he's not like dislikable. He's just kind of like, you know, he's always scheming. And if Pedro can tap into that world of like giving us a smirk, but like also the smirk kind of makes us like, what do you know that like we don't know? I think he could move mountains.
Yeah.
But right now he needs to rebrand.
Yeah.
That's my TED talk on Pedro Pascal.
No, and I agree. I also think audiences very much agree. I think, you know, no offense to him, because like he is such a lovable guy.
He is.
But
we
I
want
think
more for him though.
Yeah. I think someone needs to lock it. Maybe his agent. Most likely his agent. Like throw him a role that's a little different. Anyhow, I don't have much else to talk about this film. I have like one other thing to say, but it's not really big.
Hit me with it.
Just the pacing. You know, we talked about the whole Emma and Austin Butler subplot. The pacing there was weird. Also, towards the later half, even when things are starting to kick off, I believe it honestly comes from Aster's experience working in horror. And, you know, he edits his films with these very long, like, build up. And in a horror film, that works incredibly, right? Because it's creepy. You want these long, suspenseful, you want it to creep on you. I feel like in this, after a certain point, you could have just started cutting shit. You know what I mean? And like, I appreciate these long takes and these kind of more melodic kind of build up into the crazy and like terrorist attack thing that goes on. But you don't even need it for a film like this. For a film like this, that could have all really been done like, and it could have been just like almost like just a sprint to the finish line in a good way, and not in a way that's like making it feel rushed. You know?
I agree. Like there was like, I feel like we watched him for 5 minutes, watch Joaquin like fall down this mountain trying to get away from them. And I was like, what are we doing? Watching this man just like struggle, get down this hill. So I do agree. It was a little long, but like, I think that the beginning pacing was pretty good. It was just once we hit that middle point, I was like, "Oh, we still have like a lot to go. They gotta keep this going a little bit." But why don't we get into scores and final thoughts?
Let's do it.
All right.
Do you want to start?
I'll go first.
Okay, cool.
Final thoughts is I don't think it's a bad film. I think people, if you have any interest in this, go see it. If you're a fan of Ari Aster's work, I recommend it. I didn't see Beau is Afraid, but from what I'm hearing, it is a little bit more of a palatable film than Beau is Afraid. So if you sat through that film, probably should see this one. I just wish that there was still a bigger theme for me to take away. I think it was really hard for me to like completely wrap my head over everything that he was trying to achieve, which I still have to applaud him. It's a very ambitious film. I think he was trying to tackle something that he maybe himself also didn't know what he was totally doing when he was writing it, because he was probably living in this while he was writing it. Even now, 5 years after COVID, I don't even know what the hell we went through, so I can't imagine trying to make a film about it. I'm interested to see in 5 years when I rewatch this, like what my thoughts are. Maybe it sits with me a little bit more. But yeah, I don't think it's bad. I think people, it's a polarizing film.
Yeah.
People are either going to walk away loving it, hating it. For me, I'm very, very in the middle, which kind of makes me even more uncomfortable, because usually I'm like, I know right away how I feel about a film. But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe I'm meant to like not know exactly what I want. So very interesting film. I feel like I need to marinate even more on it after this conversation. It could be one that I'm not going to watch soon because I don't know if it has a ton of rewatchability very quickly, but maybe in a few years I will. And for me, it's one of Joaquin's really memorable performances. I loved him in this. I think that he's a brilliant actor. And honestly, every time, even if the film's bad, I still think that he delivers solid work. So I'm not surprised by his performance. But with all of that being said, I'm going to give this, which I will say I went in a little bit lower. And through talking with you, Vinny, it made me come up a little bit. I'm going to do a solid 7.
Ooh, okay.
I'm going to do a solid 7 because I still think it's not a bad movie. Is it one of his best? No. Is it his worst? Probably not. So give him a 7.
Okay, that's pretty high. That's pretty high. That's very solid. And honestly, I'm not too far off. I give this a light. No, I give this a solid 8. So not too far off, very in the same range. Yeah, you know, aside from minor issues, I think if you go into this film and, you know, people are very strongly attached to their personal beliefs, and if you don't like to be criticized on those personal beliefs, just don't watch this film. And if you want to watch this film, just leave them at the front door, keep an open mind. It is really funny in my opinion. I think a lot of the dry humor works. I just think a lot of the humor in general works, and just the satirical situations that these characters get in, and it's just so batshit crazy that it's a lot of fun. And contrary to a lot of internet opinions I'm seeing, I do think that the ending delivers on a message that resonates. So, yeah.
That's it.
All right. So that has been our discussion on Eddington. Thank you guys for watching if you've come all the way to the end. If you like our content here, please subscribe. We have so many more YouTube videos on the channel. We have also so much more content very similar to this on all our social media platforms, maybe TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, and etc. So follow us there and keep up to date. That has been Vinny Albano.
I'm Liz Seiko.
And thank you for watching.
This is The Culture.